If General Motors really does pull the plug on the Chevrolet Bolt EV again by 2028, it will not be because the car failed. It will be because the system around it did. And that distinction matters because the Bolt's second death would say far more about American EV politics, tariffs, manufacturing strategy, and corporate priorities than it does about consumer demand for affordable electric cars. In fact, if you step back and look at the timing, the pricing, and the broader market context, killing the Bolt again may go down as one of the most self-defeating decisions GM has made in the EV era. When GM ended production of the Bolt in 2023, the reaction was immediate and emotional. This was one of the very few electric vehicles normal people could actually afford. Not theoretically, not with incentives stacked 3 layers deep, but in real-world transactions. The Bolt was imperfect, slow charging, and unglamorous, but it worked. It sold consistently. And more importantly, it served as an entry point into EV ownership for buyers who were not early adopters, tech obsessives, or luxury shoppers. So when GM announced the Bolt would return for the 2027 model year with more range, faster charging, and a modernized Ultium-based platform, it felt like a correction, a second chance, an acknowledgement that affordability still matters in a market where the average new vehicle transaction price has sailed past $50,000. The revived Bolt was positioned to start below $30,000, even without the $7,500 federal EV tax credit. That alone would have made it one of the most important EVs in America. Now, according to reports, that revival may last barely a year. The Bloomberg report paints a picture that is both logical and deeply frustrating. GM's Fairfax assembly plant in Kansas City, Kansas, where the Bolt is built, is needed for other priorities. Specifically, GM reportedly plans to move production of the Buick Envision from China to the United States, followed by the Chevrolet Equinox moving from Mexico to Kansas. Both moves are direct responses to tariff pressure stemming from U.S. trade policy toward China and Mexico. In simple terms, building vehicles overseas is becoming more expensive, and GM wants to avoid passing those costs on to buyers. On paper, this makes sense. The Buick Envision is a strong seller, and moving production stateside protects margins. The Equinox is a volume vehicle, and keeping its pricing competitive is critical. But the consequence of those decisions is that factory capacity becomes scarce, and something has to give. That something appears to be the Bolt. This is where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. GM has spent years publicly committing to an all-electric future. It has invested billions in EV platforms, battery plants, and software. It has repeatedly emphasized the importance of mass adoption. Yet, when push comes to shove, the one EV that actually delivers mass market affordability is the first to be sacrificed. The official explanation from GM only reinforces this tension. A spokesperson stated that the Bolt was always intended to be a limited-run model brought back due to strong customer demand, and that there will be a future announcement regarding its ramp down as the Fairfax plant prepares for ICE-powered Equinox production in mid-2027. Read between the lines, and the message is clear. The Bolt is useful, but not essential. A stopgap, a placeholder, not a pillar of GM's future lineup. That framing feels increasingly disconnected from reality. The EV market in the United States is no longer constrained by curiosity. It is constrained by price. Consumers are not rejecting electric vehicles because they dislike the technology. They are rejecting them because most EVs are too expensive, too large, or too compromised for everyday life. The Bolt, despite its flaws, solved that equation better than almost anything else on sale. And GM knew it. That is why the revived Bolt was engineered to improve charging speed, increase range, and modernize its interior while keeping costs down. That is why it was positioned under $30,000. That is why demand never truly went away, even after production ended in 2023. So why kill it again? The uncomfortable answer is that the Bolt is not profitable in the way GM's other vehicles are. Affordable EVs operate on thinner margins. They require scale, patience, and a willingness to accept lower per-unit profit in exchange for long-term market penetration. That is a harder sell internally than building high-margin SUVs and trucks, especially when manufacturing capacity is under pressure from geopolitical forces. Tariffs play a central role here. The Buick Envision is currently built in China at an SAIC GM joint venture plant in Shanghai. With tariffs increasing, that production model becomes untenable if Buick wants to keep the Envision competitively priced. Moving production to Kansas solves that problem, but it creates another: displacement. The Fairfax plant cannot build everything at once. The same logic applies to the Equinox. GM has already announced plans to shift production from Mexico to facilities in Michigan, Tennessee, and Kansas. Again, tariffs drive the decision. Again, capacity becomes the bottleneck. And again, the Bolt loses. What makes this especially painful is the timing. The elimination of the federal EV tax credit removes a major incentive for buyers, making affordable EVs even more critical. At the same time, competitors are struggling to deliver compelling sub-$30,000 electric vehicles at scale. This should be the moment when GM doubles down on the Bolt, not quietly prepares its exit. There is technically a caveat. The Bloomberg report leaves open the possibility that the Bolt could continue if it becomes a runaway hit, but that qualifier feels more like legal hedging than genuine optimism. GM's own language suggests the decision is already leaning toward finality. If the Bolt disappears again by 2028, the implications extend far beyond one model line. It would signal that GM's EV strategy is increasingly top-heavy, focused on higher-priced vehicles that appeal to wealthier buyers. It would reinforce the perception that automakers are more comfortable electrifying luxury than democratizing transportation. And it would leave a gaping hole in the market that startups and foreign manufacturers will eventually rush to fill. There is also a reputational cost. Killing the Bolt twice risks eroding consumer trust. Buyers who embraced the revived Bolt in 2027 may feel burned if the model is discontinued almost immediately. Residual values, long-term support, and confidence in GM's commitment all come into question. In an EV market still plagued with skepticism, that kind of uncertainty is toxic. From a strategic standpoint, the decision feels short-sighted. Yes, tariffs matter. Yes, factory utilization matters. But so does momentum. The Bolt was more than a car. It was a statement that EVs do not have to be luxury objects. Walking away from that message undermines years of marketing and public positioning. It also raises an uncomfortable question. If GM cannot make an affordable EV work in the United States, who can? Tesla has largely abandoned the low end of the market. Legacy automakers are struggling to balance costs. Chinese manufacturers are blocked by tariffs and regulation. The Bolt's demise would leave American buyers with fewer options, not more. In the end, the second death of the Chevrolet Bolt EV would not be a story about failure. It would be a story about priorities, about choosing short-term margin protection over long-term market building, about allowing trade policy to dictate product strategy, and about the persistent difficulty of doing the hardest thing in the EV transition, making electric cars normal, accessible, and boring enough to truly replace gasoline. If GM goes through with this plan, the Bolt will likely be remembered as the EV that proved affordability was possible, even if the industry was not ready to commit to it. And that may be the most frustrating part of all.